A super sexy and smart rom-com set against the backdrop of a post-Me Too Hollywood is Birds of California by Katie Cotugno. In the novel, we meet former child actor Fiona St. James. Fiona dropped out the spotlight after a public crash and burn, and the tabloids said she lost her mind. Now, in her late 20s, Fiona believes her past is firmly behind her, and she won't let anything or anyone mess it up for her. But unlike Fiona, Sam Fox, who played her older brother on the popular television show Birds of California, loves the perks that come with being a successful Hollywood actor. But when his current show gets cancelled, he desperately signs on for a Birds of California revival. But to make it happen, he needs Fiona. Against her better judgment, Fiona agrees to have lunch with Sam, and what happens next takes them both by surprise. But just like the rom-coms Fiona despises, there's a twist that threatens her new love. Birds of California by Katie Cotugno is being published by Harper Perennial, and it's a sexy, smart, romantic comedy you really don't want to miss. Welcome to The Reader's Couch, a podcast that brings you lively conversations with some of your favourite authors and bookish personalities. Over here, the couch is always booked, but I've moved some books to the side table and fluffed some cushions so I can welcome a guest or two to come lounge with us. Today on the couch, we have Sophie Sullivan, and she's here to talk to me about her latest novel, How to Love Your Neighbor, an enemies to lovers meets HGTV romantic comedy. Stay tuned. Hi readers! Don't forget to download your free copy of the 2022 Spring Reading Guide. We've selected the best new releases this season and organized them into categories in the guide so you can head straight to your favorite section if you prefer. We also have one category that's dedicated to the minimalist reader, and our Minimalist Reads list has a handful of books that we highly recommend if you're only planning to pick up a few reads this spring. In the guide, you'll also find some fun recipes, things to do at home, and tips to improve your reading life. So download your free guide and see the books that made the list over at bibliolifestyle.com. That's your free copy of the 2022 Spring Reading Guide that you can download right now over at bibliolifestyle.com. I've also included a link in the show notes so you can sign up there. Happy spring reading! Hi readers, welcome again to the Reader's Couch. I'm your host, Victoria Wood, and here on the couch with me is the author of 10 Rules for Faking It. But she's here to talk to me about her latest novel, How to Love Your Neighbor. Please welcome to the couch, Sophie Sullivan. Hey, Sophie.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yes, I'm super excited to have you here as well. Can't wait to talk about How to Love Your Neighbor. But first, I really want to kind of gauge your excitement right now. I mean, your book's out there in the world. It's been out there for over a month now. I mean, how are you feeling? How excited are you?
I'm really excited because not only am I seeing it on Instagram and everything, but people are really loving the fact that Chris and Everly make a little appearance in the book, and so it's bringing up talk about 10 rules as well. And it's just, there's something amazing about the fact that 10 rules has been out for over a year, and people are loving. People waited for this book, and that's amazing. And then they're excited still about the first one. So it's really it's wonderful.
Oh, absolutely! I can only imagine. But I want readers to hear from you, Sophie. Tell us about your novel, How to Love Your Neighbor, and what can readers expect when they pick up your book?
So How to Love Your Neighbor is Noah's story. So if you read 10 Rules for Faking It, Noah is Chris's brother from the first book. and he's moved to California to be closer to Chris and get away from their toxic father. And yeah, he's a purchaser. He buys things, he sells them, he makes them better. He doesn't get attached, and he ends up buying this house, and he thinks, no, this is kind of what I want, I think. And he wants to settle in, but he, of course, he's extravagant and spoiled and wants to buy the house next door to have a pool as well. And he tries to buy the house next door, and she absolutely will not sell because, of course, Grace is someone who's always wanted a home, and she's been given the opportunity to have one, and he's not taking it away from her, basically. So yeah, so that's their story. They're both quite stubborn characters. So watching them kind of get around who wants what and how they'll get their way is fun.
Right, absolutely. So for our avid romance readers, this is an enemies to lovers novel. That's the trope. There's also a hint of HGTV because there's remodeling involved.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm super excited about that. And I want to know, Sophie, what inspired you to write How to Love Your Neighbor? I mean, give us some behind the scenes details on the spark for the novel. I mean, did you know you were going to write this story when you did 10 Rules, or was this just independent of its own?
Well, I knew I was going to write 2 more books because Wes's story is coming as well. And when I signed the contract with St. Martin's, I was lucky enough to get all 3 books. So I knew the story was there. And Noah kind of, as most of my secondary characters do, Noah kind of created himself. Chris had a brother, and but I was focused on Chris and Everly, and he kind of came in and he was the comic relief. And when I wrote the second book, I already had this established sort of real estate mogul for him, and so I needed to do something with that. And so then I start thinking about, okay, so he's this guy who is kind of spoiled and kind of used to getting what he wants, but he wants more out of life than, he sees his brother being happy, and he wants more out of life than what his father's offering and what he has in New York. And so then I have to think, okay, who do I pair him with that wants something different from him, or ultimately wants the same thing but goes about it a different way? And so that's kind of how Grace came along. It's like, and they're complete opposites in the fact, like, if you use their houses to represent them, he's got this massive house that really doesn't need to be remodeled but will be, and she's got this tiny little bungalow with barely enough room to turn around in, and she's just so thrilled for it. And here he's thinking about expanding into someone else's yard. And I love that. I love the idea of taking the 2 characters, and not necessarily for enemies to lovers, but just in general. I love the idea of taking 2 characters that seem different on the surface and having them be very similar at their core, and both of them are. And then with the house thing, it just came, naturally that, well, she'd want to fix up her house, and it was like, okay, well, what could she do? And, once you start developing a few ideas, the other ideas kind of snowball, or I talk with my editor, or I talk with other writers, and then those ideas get built up. I love home renovation shows. I love Fixer Upper and Leave It to Brian. So it was kind of fun to fall back on that and pull in some old, I don't know how old my readers are, but I used to watch Trading Spaces. Did you ever watch that?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an old one, but I loved it. I loved, I didn't always love the design because some of them were crazy, but I loved the idea that they traded houses and did that. So it was really a fun thing to bring in, and a playful thing for them to have together.
Absolutely. And I'm not going to spoil the book. I'll just say one of the common things they had in the novel, outside of, being neighbors and both renovating homes, is that they both had dysfunctional parents.
Yeah.
And I think that was something at the core that kind of, made them more relatable to each other. So, yeah, there are tons of goodies in the book. I can't wait for people to read it and see for themselves. But I'm going to put you on the spot now, Sophie, and ask you, of Noah and Grace, if you had to pick one, who's your favorite?
I think Noah, just because he's funny. He's just, Grace is funny too, but Noah is just, he's not what he seems on the surface. Especially since we meet him in 10 Rules, and he just seems like the goofy older brother.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Absolutely. All right, so let's get into your writing life a bit, Sophie. How long did it take for you to write How to Love Your Neighbor and just pull this story together?
Probably a few months. So on average, it takes me anywhere from, I don't know, it could be like a month to 3 months to write the first draft of a book. Generally, it's it needs tons of editing, but at that point, when I write, I go back and I read what I wrote the night before and I do a little bit of editing. So it's not like it's this completely unpolished draft. So about 3 months is the maximum it would take, I think. And then, of course, then you go through all the editing and things like that. So it's a much longer process once you hit that point.
Of course, that makes sense. And what would you say is the most difficult part of your creative process?
I'm trying to look at edits as this opportunity to make the book stronger. And I know there's so many writers that love that piece of it, but I'm like, but I already wrote it and now I want to write something else. So it takes me a little while to dive back in. And for the first little while after I was published, it took me a little while to realize it was okay that I had so many edits. It was like, well, if I'm a good writer and I can get published, how can I have so much I still have to do? So it took me a while to learn about the relationship between the editor and the writer and how much stronger they help you make the book and what it adds to it. And I think of the things that we went back and added to 10 Rules and to How to Love Your Neighbor. And even I just finished the third book, finished the edits for that. And it's so much stronger, so much better. So I'm trying to learn to enjoy that process more, but it's definitely the hardest, I think, for me.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So as mentioned in my intro, and as we've been discussing here, you previously published 10 Rules for Faking It.
Yeah.
How was doing that similar or different from writing How to Love Your Neighbor? Are there any similarities, differences? What was it like?
How to Love Your Neighbor, I don't know if this sounds silly, but How to Love Your Neighbor felt like writing a book usually feels for me. 10 Rules for Faking It felt a little bit more personal. There's the anxiety rep in there, which I have a close connection to. And it was really a story that I wrote because it was just for me, really. And I had a really great time with it. And I had a wonderful time with How to Love Your Neighbor as well. But the anxiety rep isn't there. There weren't the same, personal threads. So it was wonderful and I enjoyed it, but it didn't, for me, it was a little bit removed again, like it usually is for me. That sounds bad to say that because they're my characters and, I'm immersed in the book, but there was a little bit of division, whereas I felt like that kind of veil was gone with 10 Rules. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Totally. That makes complete sense. And kind of going further back now, you previously published many books under Jodie Holford. So how was it similar to or different from publishing now under Sophie Sullivan?
It's such a strange, it's amazing. I have published several books under Jodie Holford's Sweet Romance and Cozy Mysteries. And, I was building a readership and it's going very well. It's lovely. I feel very grateful. And then they suggested that I have a pen name. St. Martin suggested I have a pen name so that I could kind of launch myself in a new direction and kind of have a fresh start. And it's been amazing. I don't know if it was just timing or the Sophie Sullivan book, or I just started going on Instagram more, but I found this whole Bookstagram community and it's opened so many things up in terms of like just finding readers and friends. And it's been really, it's like it's like it opened a whole new door to something I hadn't expected. And I kind of thought, okay, well, I'm used to this now. I'm used to publishing and I'm used to engaging with readers and all of this stuff, but this has been so much more. It's been really cool.
It's like going on a whole new ride at the theme park.
It is. It really, truly is. Even though you've been there several times before, it's been wonderful.
Awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, Sophie, if you could tell your younger writing self now anything, seeing where you are now and just everything you've been through, what would you tell her?
Don't be so desperate. I felt this incredible, I want to say drive, but that's not the right word because it's not it wasn't as much of a strength. It was like if I didn't get published or I didn't get my stories to someone, it wasn't going to happen. Like I really, I just had this, okay, I have to write one more and I have to do this and I have to do that. And I didn't breathe. And so now I'm enjoying what I write. And it's not that I didn't before, but there was just this frantic energy about it that I had to produce more so that I could make sure that people could see that, it wasn't just a fluke that I did that first book and you liked it. And so I kind of would tell myself to chill out a little bit and realize that publishing is really a long game, right? Like it is not something that happens quickly. And it was really hard for me to wrap my head around that because I was, producing all of these things and I had it there available, ready to go, but nothing happens quickly. And I just had to that's another great thing that publishing as Sophie Sullivan has taught me and helped me with, because traditional publishing, and I have published with other traditional publishers as well, but St. Martin's is the biggest one, and they're the first one that I've gotten my books on the shelf. And that route is slower by nature simply because they have to plan things out so much. And so I've had to kind of sit back, but it's also made me slow down a little bit and be like, hold on, I really like doing this too. So, when I look back, just sitting at my kitchen table and being like, okay, I'll just finish, I was exhausted and working full time and I still am those things, but there's more joy in it because there's not this, the frantic piece of it that if I don't get it done now, it's not going to get done.
Right. Yep, that makes sense. I get it. Absolutely. So seeing that you told us, earlier in the show, it's a 3-book deal. So we have 10 rules. Now we're here talking about how to love your neighbor. So what's book 3 going to be like? What can you tell us?
So it's funny when you get to the 3rd book, because you want to make sure it's distinguished, just especially when you've got brothers who are very similar at their core and similar in personality. And how do I make that a little bit different? So book 3 is about Wes. And it's right now it's tentatively titled Guide to Staying Just Friends. And he's sort of the, I don't know if readers will remember, but he's the one that created in 10 Rules, the Everlove app. So he's the tech guru and kind of the brains behind, not the brains because they're all smart, but you know what I mean? He's the tech guy behind everything. And he, he's the researcher and the serious one. He's also the oldest. And so he comes to town as well, just like the others. And he's more, it's a fun meet cute. There's some mistaken identity at the beginning, and he embarrasses himself with Haley, who is going to be his love interest. And she's just come to California. Well, she's from Hollywood, actually. So she's just come there, and she's opening a salad shop. And so it's this fun dynamic of her trying to reestablish herself and figure out who she is, and him trying to make sure he's not this specific person and kind of being hard on himself about that. So I really, really enjoyed writing this one. It's a fun one.
Yay!
Yeah.
Yay! That's great. So we have a 3rd book to look forward to, you guys.
Yes.
And if you haven't started reading Sophie yet, definitely start with 10 Rules and then come back to How to Love Your Neighbor.
Yeah, it's fun. I like how much people are enjoying seeing Chris and Everly. I had a couple people message me this morning saying, I love seeing Chris and Everly. I'm like, well, I love writing them in there, right? There's nothing better as a reader than going back into a world that you loved and catching up with those characters that you fell for the first time.
Yes, absolutely. And them having a whole new story and you getting to know them a bit more. So
yeah.
I definitely co-sign that 100%. Okay, Sophie, I want to get into your reading life a bit.
Okay.
And I want to know what you're reading. So even though we're here to talk about How to Love Your Neighbor, let our listeners know the last book or books that you finished reading that you'd now recommend.
Well, I'm a really big fan of cozy mysteries. So I just finished a book by Sarah Fox, which as an author, I'm very, very lucky I get to read some books that aren't out yet. So she actually is doing a new cozy mystery series. And I just got to read the first one in that, and it's not out yet. So I read that. Sorry, you can't read it yet. And I read Totally Paw-Struck by Sophie Ryan, who I also love. That's a series of cozy mysteries, and it's just a fabulous series. And I'm kind of on a cozy mystery kick right now. So I'm also in the middle of reading Murder, It Seems by Reagan Davis. My last romances, I just finished Tools of Engagement, which of course Tessa Bailey is a master. She's wonderful and funny and romantic and all of the things. So that was wonderful. And I am going to start, because it's been strongly suggested, When Sparks Fly. Is that it? By Helena Hunting. Yeah, so that one's been recommended several times. So I picked that one up the other day. And as soon as I finish my cozies, I'm going to pick up that one.
Yes. Amazing. So I'm going to put you on the spot again, because we were sharing earlier about revisiting worlds that we've loved and how cool it is, especially, when we have authors like you who follow up with characters and expand on them. So that's great. But do you, Sophie, do you reread books at all?
I do so much. I have some that I have read so many times that I actually, I have pieces of it memorized. Most of them are Nora Roberts. I really, especially when I'm feeling kind of anxious, I tend to read, which is odd, because when I'm feeling anxious, I read these suspense books, which is really probably not helpful, but I know how they end, so it's okay. So I tend to reread The Search, The Witness, and Angels Fall by Nora Roberts. And then I just often reread favorite bits of favorite books, like Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell.
Oh, I love it. I am planning, and I'm really thinking this out here on the show, you guys. I really didn't plan this in advance, but I have this idea to kind of just get some of my favorite authors, people I've spoken to on the podcast, to talk about rereading books, because I think it's such a huge debate in the book community, revisiting favorites, or just having so many books, you're like, I don't have time to reread books, but I love rereading books. So whenever I hear someone say, yeah, I reread books, it's like, I'm like, yay, my tribe.
I love it too. I think that would be a fabulous conversation. I'd be very curious to know what other people are rereading, because it really, truly, it's a sense of comfort. You know how it's going to end. You love the characters. I mean, how amazing is that someone's created characters that it's like, okay, I'll just go visit them and things will be fine, right? And I had spoken with someone last week, and she was talking a little bit about that, how we use books to fall into and kind of push the rest of the world away sometimes. And for me, there's nothing better than going back to a book that brought me comfort and joy the first time, and it's still there, right?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. I love it. I'm going to make something happen. My brain is ticking, right?
I think you should. I love that. And I know we're not the only ones.
That's the whole idea. I'm like, there's no way. So I'm going to make something happen. It's going to happen.
Good.
I'm going to figure it out.
Good. That's perfect.
Amazing. Okay, Sophie, getting back on track a bit, I guess you could say. We love bookstores here on the podcast. So we love our authors. We love reading. We love hearing about the craft, but we also love supporting local indies. So I ask all the guests on the show. So of course, I'm going to ask you to share with our listeners some of your favorite local bookstores.
So I live in Canada. I live about an hour and a bit outside Vancouver, Canada. And it's funny because we live in a town that is fairly populated. It would at a glance seem like a big city, but for us, I feel like, oh, we don't have this and we don't have that. We don't have all these, bigger stores, but we do have this fabulous independent bookstore called The Bookman. And there's actually 2 locations. There's one right on the other side of town from us, which is only about 10 minutes away, and one about a half an hour away, 2 different stores, but the same owners. And it is just, actually it was the owner's birthday not on Facebook. It was really his birthday, but I saw on Facebook that it was his birthday. And it's this really neat thing because his daughter has taken over the store, but he's still always there. And it's a community, right? It's a wonderful store. You literally can get lost in the shelves. It just goes back forever. And And I have gone to that store so many times and poured through, like, Rachel Gibson and Carly Phillips and Sophie Kinsella, and it just, there's so many of them and there's so much to look at. And now I bring my children there. And my children could bring me there now. One of them's 19. Yeah, it's really cool. I think it's kind of neat that in a town where I feel like, oh, I wish we had this or that, we have this amazing indie bookstore. Another one that I really like that I only get to go to maybe once or twice a year when we go visit friends on the island is called Volume 1. And I thought it was really cool. It's this tiny little shop. But when I went in, they had this book of bookstore cats, which I guess is a thing. And certainly at the Bookman, there's a couple of cats roaming around. But this book on bookstore cats actually had the cats from Chilliwack, which I thought was really, really kind of neat. So the cat was featured in this bookstore cat book, which was kind of cool. So, yeah.
That's amazing. But Sophie, bringing things back to How to Love Your Neighbor. Again, the book's been out there for a while. Again, readers have been in touch with you, which I think is fantastic.
It's so cool.
But what are you hoping for with this novel? What are the reactions you're hoping for, or just some thoughts you're hoping readers might have when they turn that last page?
I hope it's fun for them. I hope that because the anxiety rep was so strong in 10 Rules, it kind of became the theme of the book. I don't know if that's the right word, but it became a central piece of it. And this one doesn't have that. So I hope it offers a little bit of range and a little bit of humor. And also I really truly love the theme of found family, finding your people and, how you can build that for yourself. And I think that's a theme in all of my books. And I hope that people connect with that and enjoy seeing the other characters again. Because, Rob and Stacey are in there and it's a lot of fun.
Absolutely. A bunch of fun. I loved it.
Oh,
and I'm
thank
so
you.
happy. Yes, and I'm so happy you took time out. I know you're under the weather, but again, thank you so much for coming on the show and speaking with me. It's been a pleasure.
It was my pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to The Reader's Couch. You can find out more about the show and submit your questions for our guest by visiting our website, thereaderscouch.com. You can also connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Couch Is Booked. If you like the show, please subscribe, share, and take a few seconds to leave a rating and review. Next week, I'll be back with new guests, more books, and some fun games we can play. But until then, stay lounging, stay reading, and whenever you're in doubt, go straight to your local bookstore or library. Thanks for listening, and happy reading.